Had contingency plans to evacuate its workers within hours should hostilities spread to Riyadh. Earlier this morning, I asked the Director of Corporate Communications for Telecom, Peter Thomas, whether there were now any plans to evacuate the employees in Riyadh.
No, well, we have plans in place, as we said, contingency plans to move those people if and when the need is there. You've heard Garth, he's got a meeting underway now. We've been talking to him also in the last few minutes. The report from there is that all of our people are safe, which is the prime consideration. The second thing now is that any decisions that are made on relocation, and we have already relocated many of our people over there. We've moved some out of the eastern province, those we had there. We've moved dependents down to Jeddah, which is considered to be safe. And the ones that you're now talking about in Riyadh, Garth will be meeting with those people. They'll be putting in their opinions. They'll be talking with us. We'll be talking also with Foreign Affairs, and only then will a decision be made as to what happened.
And who will make that decision?
That decision will be made in agreement between our people in Saudi and our people here. We've got to listen very much to our people there. They play a very important part in the assessment process. We listen also to Foreign Affairs. We have a liaison officer indeed up with Foreign Affairs to make sure we're right up to date there. And then the total situation is assessed. We talk with Garth and our senior management here make a decision, and if need be, we relocate some or all of those people as necessary.
Now, if those people on the ground should decide that they should be moved out, is that automatic? Will that happen?
It will happen. They're the people on the ground. It's something for them to really have great input. They're the ones that we're concerned for, and they're the ones that have a great input to this assessment.
Is it very much an individual choice of those people now that they've remained there that long?
Yes, it is in some way. Each of the people that is over there, including the dependents, and you should be aware that we have been urging the dependents for some time now to at least move as far as Jeddah. As Garth pointed out, 31 of those dependents have still chosen not to move from Riyadh. Now, they've done that as very personal decisions that they've decided to stay there. We've put on air travel to move people down if and when they need, and of course that still applies. We don't want to have any of our people injured over there.
But what is the nature of a project that's made it imperative for telecom employees to remain in what is now obviously definitely a war zone?
Well, you've also got to bear in mind that the telecom workers are only some of many hundreds of people that are still working in Saudi Arabia. But the project that you're talking about is the Saudi Civilian Telecommunications Network, and our people play a very important role in advising on the operation, the maintenance, the network management of that particular network. They've played that role very, very well up till now. You should also realise, I think you would from talking with Garth, that they're a very professional group. They're committed to their task in hand. They didn't want to walk away from something at too early a stage. They're now considering the latest situation regarding the military situation, and a decision will be made then as to what the next moves are.
Telecom Peter Thomas talking to me from Melbourne. While the American-led forces are claiming widespread victory in the air war, Iraqi television has shown interviews with 7 captured airmen shot down on raids over Iraq and Kuwait. The 7 airmen are reported to be 3 Americans, 2 Britons, an Italian, and a Kuwaiti. Tony Hill reports from Nicosia.
The appearance of the 7 airmen has confirmed Iraqi claims that it had captured members of the US-led multinational force. The 7 were shown wearing their uniforms. One of the last Western correspondents in Baghdad reported that the men appeared seated before a white wall. They seemed disturbed, and one had a bandaged hand. They were then questioned by Iraqi officials.
Comarco $3.65, CSI $4.82, email $2.65, Foster's Brewing $1.39, Foodland $3.29, the Frank Income Fund 75 cents, Goodman Silver $1.42, ICR $2.30, James Carter $2.39, Beasley $14.70, Bay Nicholas $5.80, the National Australia Bank $5.40, News Corporation $4.60, IBM $2.10, Orbital $3.15, Pacific Belmont $4.93, CNC $1, East Barber $2.65, Westpac $3.50, Western Trust $1.76, Accor $3.42, APM 54 cents, Ample Restoration $2.25, Ashton $1.30, Sturrock 9 7 cents, Bougainville 65 cents, CRA $9.50, Durrell Resources 30 cents, Dominion 77 cents, Emperor 52 cents, Homestake 85 cents, Kingston $1.90, Matana 28 cents, Mount Isa Mines $1.50, Newmont 91 cents, Guinea Mining $1.37, Pasmico $1.45, Place Pacific $2.92, Poseidon $1.31, Renison $6.40, Santos $3.65, Sons of Aulia $4.45, Australian Sands $1.55, Western Mining $3.88, and Woodside $2.68. And finally, being movement in the market indicators, the All Ordinaries Index was up 3 points, Pure Industrials Index rose 11 points, Pure Resources Index was down 2 points, and the Gold Index fell 8 points. This is Margaret Trepier from the Australian Stock Exchange.
And now to the weather. First, here's the district forecast for the central west. Fine with southerly winds, fresh about the coast, and a high fire danger. The lower west, fine with southerly winds, fresh about the coast, and again a high fire danger. Southwest, cloudy with some isolated drizzle on the south coast, fresh southerly winds, and a high fire danger. The southern coastal, cloudy with some isolated drizzle mainly on the coast, and moderate southerly winds. In the western half, a high fire danger, and the eastern half, a very high fire danger. Great Southern, fine with southerly winds and a high fire danger. And the central west belt, fine with southerly winds and a high fire danger. Now the state and metropolitan forecast, a strong wind warning has been issued for coastal waters from Kalbarri to Cape Luna. For the state, in the eastern and southern Cobras, eastern Gascoyne, eastern Eucla, interior and adjacent goldfields, isolated thunderstorms. In the Kimberleys, scattered showers and thunderstorms along the south coast, scattered drizzle. For Perth, fine with fresh southerly winds, an estimated overnight minimum of 16 degrees, followed by a forecast maximum of 28. Easter winds show that in the northern half, thunderstorms and rain occurred in the Kimberley, with 97 millimetres of rain recorded at La Grange in the 24 hours to 9 a.m. Isolated thunderstorms were reported in the interior and inland Pilbara. Southern half, thunderstorms occurred in the Eucla, adjacent south coast area, and the Goldfields. 5 millimetres of rain was recorded at Eyre in the 24 hours to 9 a.m. Drizzle was reported along the southern coast. The outlook for Perth on Wednesday, fine with southeast winds, maximum in the low 30s. Thursday, hot easterly winds, maximum in the mid-30s. It's 25 to 2.
I'm Richard Corveryman with more from the Gulf War. Israel has started distributing gas masks to Arab residents in the occupied territories just 4 days after the first Iraqi missile attacks on the Jewish state. But Palestinians say a large part of the Arab population will miss out on vital protection already available to Israeli citizens. The managing editor of the Palestinian newspaper Al Fajr, Maher Abu Kafir, told our reporter Karim Babara that Israeli authorities have just lifted curfews for 2 to 3 hours to allow West Bank and Gaza residents to stock up.
Today, for the first time, the military soldiers from the Israeli High Court started. The particular song has been reworked, so it's got bits of George Bush talking and things like that, so the point is pretty obvious.
Stuart Matchett from the ABC's Triple J. The Middle East fighting has also put a real dampener on international travel, with many tourists deciding to stay at home in this period of uncertainty. Even here in Australia, where our distance from world travel spots makes holiday travel perhaps a little more attractive, hotels and tour operators are starting to feel the impact of a diminishing tourist market. Michael O'Regan asked the Managing Director of the Australian Tourist Commission, Tony Thirlwell, about the prospects of our lucrative tourist trade suffering in the crossfire of international conflict.
I think there is certainly anecdotal evidence that people are concerned about travelling. It's particularly the concern is regarding terrorism. I think people can get around the Gulf situation if they're flying around it, but terrorism is the thing that concerns a lot of people.
And yet in Australia, I think most people would argue that we're so far away from the hotspots of the world that would be a feature of travelling here, surely.
Well, there's some evidence of that as well. There are very mixed messages regarding Australia's position in this. I think overall, the overall concern about terrorism and flying will make it negative to Australia, but we do have some positive aspects. There are people who will see Australia as one safe haven of the world, or the South Pacific as a whole, and that might be positive. The thing that is, at the moment, we know there are cancellations happening in corporate business, corporate incentive business, corporate travel. Big companies like IBM, some of the Japanese companies, are actually just banning their employees from flying, and we're losing that business certainly. In things like the Japanese honeymoon market, which is very big at the moment, the honeymoons are still happening, the marriages are still happening, and they're still coming. Now, that's right at the moment. Where we are in the future, I don't know, but certainly we're still getting fairly good traffic out of Japan.
The Australian Tourist Commission targets quite specifically at honeymoon and married couples in Japan. Does the current crisis mean that you'll undertake a change in the way you'll market Australia?
I don't think we plan any changes at the moment. I mean, the big question mark over this whole thing is how long does it go on? I mean, if it was finished in a week, then it would be virtually no impact at all. If it goes on for months or years, it's obviously going to have a major impact. And the other key impact is just what happens with terrorism. If it's confined to the Middle East and purely to the Gulf area, and there's really little terrorism activity, I believe tourism to Australia will just go on as it was before, and probably be enhanced. We'll probably be better off. But if terrorism really strikes home, particularly in Australia, we've got a major problem.
Does the Australian Tourist Commission have specific ideas, maybe through comparisons overseas, of how the Australian government and security people might increase security at airports and things like that would encourage tourist confidence?
I don't think there's any particular ideas. I think generally we are regarded already as a fairly safe part of the world, that security is pretty okay in Australia and the South Pacific, and that we've had little problems in that area. So I think it gives us an image that, we don't promote it because you can't ever promote safety, but we have an image in the minds of most consumers as a safe part of the world. And I think that will be maintained.
Tony Thirlwell from the Australian Tourist Commission. And now, finally, back to our main story of the Iraqi missile attack on Saudi Arabian cities Riyadh and Dhahran. 6 incoming Scud missiles were intercepted earlier today over Dhahran, where there's a big American Air Force base, and the US has claimed a 100% success rate in bringing down the Iraqi missiles. Well, there's now been an official response from Washington, and our correspondent in the US Capitol, Rob Bolton, joins us on the line. Rob, what is the US reaction to the attack?
There's just been a briefing given in Riyadh. Lieutenant Colonel Mike Gallagher giving detail on these Scud attacks, and a little bit of controversy arising from that. The updated figures are that there were in fact 10 Scuds launched on targets in Saudi Arabia in 2 separate volleys. Now, 9 of these were successfully engaged by Patriot anti-missile missiles. 5 were headed at Dhahran, 4 at Riyadh, and 1 of these Scuds landed in the water, so that wasn't a problem. But if all 9 were successfully engaged, why is it, the question was asked, is there a major crater not 1 kilometre from the press briefing centre, which was caused by some missile overnight? I'll just play you in some of the press conference. The person speaking is Mike Gallagher.
We have no reports yet of damage or injuries. The number of Patriot missiles fired at the incoming Scuds in the second set of launches is still not available at this time. All the missiles were thought to be carrying high explosive warheads. That concludes my statement, and now I'll take your questions. Yes, sir, in the back.
Can you tell you where the one which landed in the water actually landed with the help of a map perhaps?
What I understand is it was just off the waters, in the waters off Dhahran, and because of its trajectory was the reason that it didn't require engagement.
The last explosion heard in Bahrain, Mike, would that have been the worst?
I can't say for sure. Right here,
Are any reports of errant Patriot missiles landing in the city here?
no, we've not received any such reports, and we've not received any kind of damage reports either.
Colonel, a number of us saw what appeared to be a missile landing in the southeastern horizon as viewed from the hotel, landing with a flash on the horizon. I know you may not want to speculate, but would you guess that this could have been either an errant Patriot or that it could have been a Scud?
Okay, you're talking about the 4 in the Riyadh area?
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yes, no, I can't say what that might have been, but again, just to repeat on those, the ones in the Riyadh area, all 4 were engaged and destroyed.
Mike Gallagher. Now, interesting, there are a couple of questions about possible errant Patriot missiles, the possibility that actually some of the Patriots that went up may have come down and caused damage on the ground in Riyadh itself. That's a Patriot, not a Scud, so that's quite a development, Richard.
And it certainly seems to have been a success story for the Patriots.
Yes, of the 10 that were launched, 9 were successfully engaged and 1 harmlessly fell in the water.
Rob Bolton in Washington, thanks very much for those latest details. And that's all from the World Today for this Monday lunchtime. Our golf coverage will continue throughout the afternoon with special reports from ABC News and Current Affairs. And of course, Paul Murphy will have a full roundup of the day on PM this evening at 6:10. In the meantime, I'm Richard Palfreyman, thanking you for joining us and inviting you to tune in again tomorrow lunchtime for another 60 minutes of news and comment on the world today.
Thank you for joining us for another Connections Week, coming to you from the 63rd Summer School, organised by University Extension at the University of Western Australia, where, according to our resident botanist, Jane Stapleton, we're broadcasting from beneath a lemon-scented gum. First up today, Professor Gavin McCormick from the Department of Japanese History at the Australian National University.
The inexorable shift in patterns of world economic influence, which have worked to weaken Australia's traditional ties with Europe or North America and strengthen those with nearer countries, combined with the hollowing out of the strategic military system occasioned by the end of the Cold War, confront Australia now with choices of truly historic proportions. For over 40 years, Australia's role in the world system was predicated on overwhelming American power in this region, within a generally bipolar view of world power. During these decades, the Cold War not only determined basic policies of state and international relationships, but the values and assumptions which underlay it percolated into the deepest crevices of the national culture.